The hole in the chest. One of the most memorable scenes in Iron Man happens when Pepper Potts helps Tony Stark change the reactor in his chest. Unlike what many people think, that moment wasn't entirely made with CGI. The practical effects team built a real prosthetic of Robert Downey Jr.'s torso to make the scene more authentic.
What do you want me to do?
Over there. That is irrelevant.
Oh, God.
The process was meticulous. First, the artist created a detailed silicone replica of the actor's chest and shoulders, with the reactor cavity already built in. Then, Downey Jr. was placed in a special chair that hid his real torso, leaving only his head and neck visible. The makeup team worked with precision to blend the real skin with the prosthetic, making the illusion perfect.
Kind of make one and then scrap it and make another one and make improvements and scrap that and we have to actually.
Actress Gwyneth Paltrow also played a key role. She interacted directly with the prosthetic, simulating the reactor change as if she were actually touching inside Tony's chest. That brought a sense of urgency and realism that would be hard to achieve with green screen or CGI. Fat hero. Thor's overweight look in Avengers Endgame wasn't the result of Chris Hemsworth gaining weight or digital effects. To create that effect, the production used a full-body rubber prosthetic that weighed about 65 pounds.
Us Guardians down there. How much my help is worth.
To make it realistic, the team took detailed photos of the actor's body and built a custom mold so the suit would fit perfectly. The costume zipped up in the back and had natural-looking skin and muscle textures.
We had a big sort of fat suit, which I think was sort of 60 or 70 pounds.
This little move.
The look was completed with a messy beard and hair, reflecting the character's emotional state after the traumatic events in the story. Interestingly, Hemsworth liked the new look so much that he asked the directors not to have Thor get back to his original shape midway through the film, as was originally planned. That decision added even more authenticity and depth to the character's arc. The helicopter. The scene where Steve Rogers holds a helicopter in Captain America Civil War became one of the character's most iconic moments. And contrary to what many believe, it wasn't created entirely with CGI. The production combined practical effects with digital touches to achieve an impressive result. A real helicopter was used, suspended by a crane on set. Chris Evans actually used physical strength to make it look like he was preventing the aircraft from taking off. During filming, he hung onto the structure and pulled with full force. He even injured his arm in the process. The tension in his muscles was completely real. Directors Anthony and Joe Russo wanted to show Steve's superhuman strength in a believable way. That's why the camera focuses on Evans' arm with no digital enhancements. Visual effects were only added to adjust the background and give the scene more depth. A fun detail, the scene almost didn't go as planned. Evans showed up on set wearing a thick jacket that covered his muscles. The costume team had to quickly change his outfit so the shot would show the real physical effort, just as the script demanded. The first climb. The iconic scene where Peter Parker learns to climb walls in the first Spider-Man film also didn't rely on CGI. Instead, the production used a clever practical technique to make it look like Tobey Maguire was climbing vertically. The trick was a set built horizontally on the ground. The team created a realistic brick alley with all the details of a real building. Instead of actually climbing, Maguire lay face down and climbed sideways while the camera did the rest. To enhance the illusion of gravity, wires were used to lift the actor and control his movements precisely. This made it look like he was really defying gravity while scaling the wall. The camera was rotated 90 degrees and filmed the scene from the side. When played back, it looked like Peter Parker was climbing straight up. Fans were also used to create wind and give the environment a more realistic feel. Another famous practical scene is the one where Peter catches a tray full of food that Mary Jane drops. That shot took 156 takes to get right. And even the moment when the spider walks across Peter's hand was filmed with a real spider, which had to be painted to get those specific colors. All because director Sam Raimi didn't like relying too much on CGI. Controlled fall. The truck flip sequence in The Dark Knight is one of the most jaw-dropping scenes ever made with practical effects. Director Christopher Nolan is famous for pulling off massive stunts without CGI, and that's one of the things people love most about him. In this scene, he wanted to show the real impact of the crash. No digital tricks. To make it possible, the special effects team led by Chris Corbould built a complex propulsion system to literally flip an 18-wheeler in downtown Chicago. The truck was equipped with a nitrogen-powered hydraulic piston hidden in the back. At the exact moment of filming, that piston fired with immense force, launching the rear of the truck upward and making it flip over its cab. It was all done in a single take. There was no second chance. Stunt driver Jim Wilkie, inside a reinforced cabin, drove the truck and triggered the system at the perfect moment. But to make sure everything worked, the special effects director ran multiple test flips in a controlled environment beforehand. The scene was filmed on LaSalle Street in Chicago's financial district. Local engineers inspected the underground structure to ensure it could handle the impact. Multiple cameras, including IMAX, were set up to capture the moment from every angle in one shot. In post-production, only the piston and support rigs were digitally removed. Everything else was real, resulting in one of the most unforgettable action sequences in modern cinema. A perfect example of how practical effects can create pure movie magic. The hospital explosion. Still in The Dark Knight, the scene where the Joker blows up the hospital is another unforgettable moment, and much of its impact comes from the fact that the explosion was real. The production used the demolition of an actual abandoned building that was already scheduled to be destroyed to film the sequence. The main explosion was completely real, executed with carefully planned pyrotechnics, without relying on CGI to create the destruction. Special effects supervisor Chris Corbould designed a safe setup for Heath Ledger, allowing him enough time to move away between the blasts. The first set of explosions was timed to make it look like an accident, and the delay before the second blast built up natural suspense in the scene. To capture every detail, several cameras were placed at strategic angles to film every piece of debris and every Joker reaction. Many people think the Joker's reaction when he presses the detonator and pauses, surprised by the delayed explosion, was improvised, but in reality it was rehearsed and used to give the actor time to safely move away from the building. The guitarist. The scene with the flame-throwing guitarist in Mad Max, Fury Road, is one of the movie's most unforgettable moments, and many people thought it would have been impossible to film without visual effects. But if it's on this list, you already know what that means. The character Coma Doof Warrior plays a guitar that's both a musical instrument and a real flamethrower. The prop was fully functional, actually shooting fire while being played, creating a visual impact that no CGI could replicate so authentically. The guitarist performs on a truck designed to support not only his weight, but also the massive amps and flamethrower rig. Stuntman Iota handled the guitar performance and made sure every burst of fire and explosion happened safely and in sync, while the high-speed chase was happening. The production minimized CGI, using it only for small touch-ups like removing safety cables and enhancing the flames. George Miller's decision to prioritize practical effects made the scene more intense and authentic, turning it into something raw and unforgettable. Every detail, and from the instrument's construction to the vehicle's setup, was carefully planned to make the sequence believable and visually striking. The result is a sequence that stands out not only for its action, but for the creativity and boldness of using real effects, delivering a one-of-a-kind visual spectacle that audiences will never forget. The Desert Acrobats. The scene where the Mortflyers attack the war rig in Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, was also carefully designed to rely on as little CGI as possible. The pole cats, the characters swinging on poles, were inspired by Cirque du Soleil acrobats, who spent 8 weeks building strength and technique to safely climb and swing over moving vehicles. Filming took place in Australia and lasted 78 days. CGI was only used to polish the final result, removing safety wires, adding dust and debris, and inserting digital stunt doubles in wide shots to amplify the sense of danger. Miniatures and practical effects were also mixed with CGI to simulate crashes and explosions, keeping things realistic without risking the crew's safety. The choreography and coordination of these stunts resulted in a brutal, visually stunning chase scene that feels completely grounded and cohesive. The multiverse Wolverine. One of the strangest and most striking moments in Deadpool and Wolverine happens when Deadpool crosses the multiverse and finds a Wolverine variant crucified on a giant X. Inspired directly by the comic Uncanny X-Men number 251, the sequence blends the bizarre with the epic, and behind the scenes, it was even more surreal.
Are you okay?
The scene was filmed using a massive wooden X lit with yellow lights and surrounded by a sea of red skulls. Hugh Jackman was actually strapped to the set, which was built practically to make the shot feel more real. Without the visual effects, the images looked straight out of a comic book. Exaggerated colors, theatrical lighting, and a surreal vibe. CGI was later added to remove safety rigs, enhance the lighting, and turn the setting into something darker and grander. The idea wasn't even in the original script. It was added in post-production to give more impact to the montage of alternate Wolverines. This creative choice also served as a tribute to one of the most iconic comic moments, symbolizing Wolverine's endurance and strength. Unlike earlier X-Men films, this production fully embraced the over-the-top comic book aesthetic, vivid colors, surreal imagery, and a deliberately strange tone.
Are you okay? It's not you. We're just going in a different direction.
The real fall. One of the most intense sequences in Iron Man 3 was filmed almost entirely with practical effects using real skydivers. Instead of relying only on wires or green screens, the production decided to shoot the free fall scenes with the Red Bull skydiving team. These professional athletes played the civilians falling from the plane and were choreographed to perform mid-air formations just like in the final cut. The jumps were done in North Carolina from about 12,000 feet high, with up to 8 jumps a day over 6 days. One skydiver doubled as Iron Man, while another wore a helmet-mounted camera to film the fall. None of them wore goggles, facing winds over 120 miles per hour, a detail that makes the scene even more impressive. In post-production, the visual effects team replaced the real plane with a CGI version of Air Force One exploding. The background was also changed to look like Miami, since filming took place in another state. The hardest part was isolating the skydivers from the raw footage. Their hair and flapping clothes made it one of the most complex rotoscoping tasks the team ever faced.
That was the very last part of the sequence where I think they were about 80 or 90 feet up in the air. We started them zipping down, and as they come down over the water, then one after the other, we start releasing them from their zip lines.
Iron Man's armor was added digitally, making it look like he was coordinating the entire mid-air rescue. The final slowdown sequence was filmed with wires, which required additional cleanup to remove cables and intersections. The result blends real-life adrenaline with precise practical effects, making it one of the most authentic scenes in the entire Marvel universe.
That was the very last part of the sequence where I think they were about 80 or 90 feet up in the air. We started them zipping down, and as they come down over the water, then one after the other, we start releasing them from their zip lines.
The spider sense. The scene where Peter Parker's spider sense activates on the bus during Earth's attack in Avengers Infinity War is a great example of how a simple trick can have a huge impact. Tom Holland's famous arm hair raising moment wasn't done with CGI. It was created using a clever practical effect on set. The production team chose a natural way to bring the spider sense to life. While Holland was filming, a crew member simply blew air on the actor's arm to cause real goosebumps. The camera caught the moment perfectly, adding authenticity to Peter's reaction. Directors Anthony and Joe Russo revealed that Holland improvised part of the scene, though they didn't specify exactly which moment. That bit of spontaneity made Peter's reaction feel even more natural and believable. And on the screen right now, there's another great video where we show every time Spider-Man's identity got exposed. Click to watch, and I'll see you there.